Hey guys, MD Prepper here. Another gear review. Talking about chafing fuels. I did my review last night of the Sterno little stove that I use Sterno in, and chafing fuels. Chafing fuels was something I've seen for years and never really thought about until the last few years. The hospital I was at as a fellow had weekly grand rounds, and they almost always had catered lunches, that type of stuff. Membership is great. Hey, good food, free, what can you say? But the one thing I always noticed, they always had chafing fuel cans around our little kitchen lounge area that they brought out, again, almost every week to keep the food warm and all that. Used them all the time indoors. I didn't really know a lot about chafing fuels. I've been seeing them for years at buffets and other type parties and gatherings and whatnot. Decided to say, you know what, let me try these out. Didn't know a whole lot about them. I knew, of course, about Sterno and all that, but just didn't think about chafing fuels for survival and prepping and all of that. I like them overall. Had a lot of really good success with chafing fuels so far. Again, relatively limited use, but the experiments I've done have been fantastic. No major problems with the chafing fuels overall. Relatively safe, easy to use, put out a lot of heat for cheap. Now, compared to Sterno fuels, Sternos here in South Carolina, you buy them in a 2-pack. They last, I believe it's 2¼ hours each. So that's 4½ hours total for 2 cans. And that's going to run you here $5–6, I guess, something around that price. Not bad, very functional, usable, etc. No major concerns there. I think I like the chafing fuels a lot better, especially if you buy them in bulk where you can find them. I get mine at Sam's Club. I love Sam's Club for bulk purchases and all that. This is their standard kind of house brand. It's Bakers and Chefs, which you're going to find from their flour and a lot of their other products, kitchenware, knives and towels and tablecloths and all of that. When I got my first Sam's Club membership here in the last couple years, I guess, once I had the money to do so, and actually the cash to start stocking up on things, plus here in home turf before I've been all over the country, so didn't want to buy too much prepping gear because I'd have to pay to move the stuff. So I kept things at a relative minimum. Obviously, if you've seen my videos, I own a lot of stuff now. Even if I move here in the next few months, and hopefully I will if I can find some land, it's not going to be too hard to move things, 30 minutes away, that type of stuff, in small loads in my sport utility and all that. But chafing fuel is primarily used for heating up your food, keeping it warm on things that are already cooked. But let me tell you, there's ways to keep things cooking and boiling and whatnot with these chafing fuels. I saw the chafing fuels at some of the lunches and all actually starting to boil the water they're keeping underneath, if done properly and kept close enough to the flame with enough burners underneath it. So, picked up a tray of these, pallet, whatever you call them. They tend to come in 12 or something like that, 15 cans a piece per purchase at Sam's and all that. Very cost efficient. This one is, I believe, was it 6 hours, I think? Yep, 6-hour chafing fuel. Considerably better and longer lasting than your standard Sterno fuels of 2½ hours. And I looked back and looked at my receipts, about $1 for these, give or take. That's what they got them listed on the site. I thought I paid 75 cents for them back in the day, but right now they're running for $1, so who cares if I paid back in the past. Standard little metal can, nothing real impressive there. Interesting, better than the Sterno. The Sterno comes with what I would say is a paint style can upper there. You have to pry the top off. Most of these little chafing fuels come with a twist off cap because they're used a lot more frequently. So, much easier to get on and off. If you can see it right there, you got your wick, your medium and all of that. It's more of a gel style, if you will. Though if you can hear it, there's obviously liquid down there below that wicks up. Almost no odor or anything like that. You wouldn't know if this thing's going. Produces nice, hot blue flame. Now, as it stands as a basic little can, you're going to have some kind of contraption to cook on. Obviously, the little Sterno stove is fantastic for these things. I saw something when I was buying these, ordered it online from Sam's, I believe, or Walmart, and it's these little cooking platforms. That's what they call them. These are collapsible, very small, do very, very well. The price has gone up considerably, but I'll talk about that here shortly. Metal base, 3 metal stands there, and your kind of standard cooktop stove, if you will, eyelet on the top. Basically, you have to wedge this thing in here a little bit, A little tight. It will fit in with just a little pop there. And there you go. Obviously, I'd probably had the top off. You light it up, you put your pot there, or whatever else you're trying to keep warm on the top. There you go. Now, I found that initially this thing did not work nearly as well as my Sterno little stove, but I obviously realized it after thinking about it for about 30 seconds. You're wasting a lot of heat out the sides here. Okay, this is probably good for keeping something warm, you know, simmer, if you will, which would be fine if you're going to simmer things, but I want to use all the heat I can most efficiently. So what I've done with this in the past, and I don't have it here with me, is to wrap this thing in some aluminum foil or anything like that. If you're doing this thing outside, obviously that would act as a windbreak. I use this indoors because it's indoor safe, but just to concentrate the heat upward and maximize cooking and boiling, wrap this thing in aluminum foil or something like that. I guess you could find some metal container or something like that to sit this down in that's going to work just as well. Aluminum foil is cheap, it's available. You can throw it out once you're done. But basically take a big sheet of aluminum foil, wrap it around the sides here. You're good to go. It's going to get a much quicker boil and all of that. Now, this thing collapses down real small. I don't have one collapse down other than the one I've got in the packet right now. These things sell in a 2-pack. Again, when I bought it, I think these things were 2 for, I think it was $6. I checked last night on Sam's Club and they were like $17, $18, which is ridiculously expensive. I think I'd rather have this little Sterno folding stove contraptions. These are a lot more rugged though. This is going to last a long time. You're not going to be able to beat this thing up at all. Tough. You could probably stand on this, sit on it, anything like that. But a 2-pack for 18, 16, 18 bucks, I don't know if I'd pay that, but anyway, relatively thin. Doubt you can see that with the blister pack here, but this thing's very thin. Basically, the total thickness is this little thin top piece and the bottom piece with these little metal rings stuck down here in the bottom. I just kept this in the blister pack because I'm not using it. This is the one I experiment with and use a lot. I like these things. Now let me get this out of the way. I'll slide this aside. When you find this in the stores, you're going to find this big 6-hour chafing fuels. These have the little twist-off caps. There are 12 of them there, if I did my math right, which is about 72 hours, I think, worth of fuel, which is a lot of fuel. That is a lot of cooking fuel right here for about $1 a piece. I think this whole thing was 12 bucks, maybe a little bit cheaper by current prices. Again, I think I paid less for it back when I bought it. I think it was like 8 bucks or something like that. Now, I got a couple of those big pallets of the 6 hours. Now, when I was in the store several months ago, walked in, all they had were these little 2-hour ones. And I said, well, shoot, I guess they're not making the 6 hours anymore. These were not a heck of a lot cheaper than the 6-hour ones, but I bought another pallet anyway just because Sam's is kind of a drive for me, so I'm not out there that often. I'm just going to experiment with these. These do not have the twist-off caps. These have the pry-off style caps. You know, put a knife blade or anything like that underneath them, you're going to pop them up just fine. This is 15 of them at 2 hours. That's only 30 hours, so that's less than half of the 6 hours. This is all you can find in your local stores. These are going to be fine. These are going to do the job. They're about the same size around, not quite as high, and they're going to drop in here just fine. But I just bought these just because they were there, frankly. I thought they'd stopped producing the 6-hour ones. Next time I was back, they had the 6-hour ones, as you can obviously see here, because my other one is open, and I've got little cans stored in various locations. But chafing fuels are an interesting little source. Not my primary or anything like that, but nice to keep around for camping and emergency survival, that sort of thing. Just to have. I like the chafing fuels. Like I said, a lot of uses. Very easy to use. I wouldn't say they're quite idiot-proof, because nothing is idiot-proof. Never underestimate the power of idiots. But relatively cheap option overall. Again, this burner is fine if you can find them laying around. I don't know if I'd spend the modern price on them, but whatever. Just a cheap alternative to Sterno, in my opinion. If you use it right, it's going to cook just as well. I don't have the actual BTUs that this puts out. Couldn't find that on a quick search tonight. Probably should have done more homework on it. Either way, chafing fuels, a lot of options. Again, you could use this as a car heater if you had to, as opposed to my big canister that I did the review on. Again, this is very safe. Doesn't use the isopropyl. Smaller, much smaller. Nice little sturdy cap on it. Have not done a long-term burn on these things, but obviously they give the time on them. So 6 hours in a cold weather situation is going to be pretty darn good, especially if you're in your car, because you're not going to need to burn this thing straight and continuous for 6 hours, especially if you put some Mylar blankets up, that sort of thing, to reflect the heat back. You're going to get nice and toasty warm relatively quickly, especially with your body heat in this thing, and you can shut this thing off as you need to. Let the temperature drop a little bit, heat things back up again. Why turn the place into a sauna if you don't need to? Not reusable, but hey, usable overall. Alright guys, MD Prepper out on Sterno fuel. No, sorry, it's not Sterno fuel. Chafing fuel.